Now, the competition policy reforms that many of you would be familiar with during the national competition policy of the Keating era, 1994 to 2004, are very similar objectives that the Vietnam government are now pursuing. Things such as competitive neutrality, corporatisation of utilities, full cost recovery, economic regulation, to name a few. So the point I'd like to make there is that there's not only opportunity for those technology companies and consultants, but for those that have particular skills in competition policy reforms and economic regulation and policy development. Now, the last point there is technology innovation. There is a huge thirst and desire to develop Vietnam's innovative capabilities, and a very strong interest in partnering with Australian firms to do that. And later on in the presentation you'll hear from another of AWA's partners in Vietnam, the Ministry of Science and Technology and the Vietnam Climate Innovation Centre. Mr Nguyen will provide a coverage on that. So I'll just run through a few of the activities that AWA is doing or has delivered or facilitated in Vietnam in the context of how we leverage aid for trade. Now, we have been working at the central government level in strengthening governance and regulation, principally to enable private sector participation. And we've done a range of activities connecting Australian policy expertise with the central government and certainly the local government. And there will be a paper circulated that's printed out that I'll leave on the table afterwards. But the key author of this particular paper, which draws on a lot of our work in Vietnam, is Mike Woolston from Frontier Economics. Mike, are you in the room? And the ANZ Bank, Celastaris, and I must, Andrew, if you could just put up your hand for a second. Obviously Andrew's not Stellasaurus, but in our view Stella is one of the world's leading experts in PPPs and particularly structured finance. So please reach out to Mike and Andrew for further information, and the paper will be made available today. But to give you an example of the connections and promotions that we can offer, this has been published not only in Australia but also across Vietnam, this paper. At the central level, we have been facilitating expertise from Australia to support with one of Vietnam's first PPP water utilities, and that is a PPP for Nam Dinh Water Utility, which is in the northwest area of Vietnam, just a little north-south of Hanoi by a couple of hours. Look, was quite a journey, and a lot of lessons were learnt, which I'm sure Mike will be able to share with you. But I just throw this up there as an example of Vietnam's real desire to pursue PPPs, and that they are real opportunities. But on a technological front, one of the costings we did, and you could probably see this is the traditional water treatment system that you'll see across Vietnam, very large concrete structures with sand filters and chlorination systems. We did some cost-benefit comparisons between, for example, the rack of membranes provided by Evoqua in this instance, and we found. Sorry, can I just ask those on the line to mute their line? We can hear you. We might need the muscle.
We better brute force it.
Yeah, they won't listen to reason. What can you do? Power and authority.
So to give you an example of the technological, the opportunities in technology transfer, we did a cost comparison between the cost for building these large sand filters and chlorination systems, which don't deliver drinking water, but they'll deliver what they call QCO2 water quality standards, which is clean water but not fit for drinking in what you consider the Australian Drinking Water Guidelines context. So with the support of Evoqua, and in particular Bruce Biltoft, we compared the cost of that versus a rack of ultrafiltration membranes. We determined that for a very similar price we could achieve drinking water standards, or for the same price we could achieve, or for a much less price we could achieve the same QCO2 standards for far cheaper. So our approach, and one of the examples of our approach in Vietnam, is to build confidence and capacity of the locals so that they can start to understand things like membrane technology and have the confidence to invest in that and operate that in the long run. Now, a large part of AWA's work is funded by the Australian Government, the Department of Foreign Affairs in Vietnam, where they have a particular objective of increasing access to safe drinking water in rural and remote areas. And AWA has been working in 4 provinces called Dong Thap, Can Hoa, Nam Dinh and Son La. And what we do there is put in very small scale or small to medium scale drinking water systems in areas where it's not technologically viable or economically feasible to run a centralised pipe system, typically in areas where the customer base is less than 10,000 and the cost effectiveness of running a pipeline just doesn't stack up in terms of cost recovery. So in this example, we have just returned from Dong Thap, which is a couple of hour drive west of Ho Chi Minh City on the border of Cambodia, and with several Victorian companies. But this is an example of the source water. The technology, is there a... Oh, sorry. The second photo is the technology, which I won't go into too much detail because Mark and Ken from Acvotech and Hydroscience were the technology providers in this case, but essentially it involved screening, ultrafiltration, activated carbon chlorination under an automated system that is really simple to operate yet highly advanced technology, providing drinking water quality. Now, another key Victorian-based company and one of Australia's, if not the world's, leading laboratory companies, ALS, provided the independent verification on the water quality results against Vietnam Drinking Water Guidelines, which showed compliance. So the photo on the very far side is during the launch of the system, where we have the children drinking straight from the tap for the first time, and I've got to say it's quite a rewarding experience to see the faces of the children drinking water from the tap for the first time. Wrapped around this, we also provide water quality analytical equipment, PAC spectros and Lumen Ultra's bacteria analyzer, which Arthur's in the room, I understand, and please reach out and have a chat with them. But we simply do not just chuck in technology and walk away, but we wrap around it a program of capacity building and support. I've got to say the recipe for success in this project is the partnership between Acvotech and Hydroscience and their local manufacturing in Ho Chi Minh City, where they train some very competent local staff, but I won't steal Ken's thunder. Son La, we also do similar systems, but using, in this instance, slightly different technology. So our approach is fit for use. So we understand the source water quality. We obviously want to achieve drinking water, and we put in the most cost-effective technology to achieve that. In this case, it was Evoqua membranes provided by Skyjuice, but also complemented by Hydromet. This site had particular issues with bacteria and calcium. Now, the ultrafiltration membranes were quite cost effective at pulling out the bacteria, and the Hydromet system was very cost effective in dealing with the calcium. I understand Hydromet, is there Adrian in the room? Please reach out to Adrian and have a chat with him about that. But so the unique thing about this particular system and the previous system is financial sustainability. And if you can see the kiosk picture up here, the locals essentially sell the water. It's operated by two women from our other MOU partners, the Vietnam Women's Union, who are 17 million members across Vietnam and a very, very powerful lobby group. Their local representatives operate this kiosk. They sell the 20-litre bottles of drinking water for about 5,000 Vietnam dong, which is a hell of a lot cheaper than what they currently pay for importing the bottled water, and they make a little bit of a return, which they cover all the operation maintenance costs and sink into extending other similar type projects in other areas of most need. We also did a simple system at the school, which is on the far right photo. Canhua is another project, again using, this was ultrafiltration membranes in 2 schools, which essentially provide a couple of thousand kids drinking water every day. Again, Bruce and Arthur came up and provided the independent verification of the results, and we provided training, capacity building on the use of the water quality analytical equipment and operation of it. But to give you an example of the aid trade leveraging, our very good friend, Vice Chair, Mr Tien, the Vice Chair of the People's Committee, has requested another 10 of these as soon as possible to basically fit into the other 10 rural schools that currently don't have access to drinking water, and more than willing to finance those themselves. Our water utility improvement program, we have Gary and David from Western Port Water and Coliban Water that will talk in more detail about this, so I won't say too much other than to say that our water utility improvement